The National Desk, America's News, now.
This week on the National Desk, gunning for trouble.
An uptick in aggression, violence, fighting, and possession of weapons on school property.
Why some teachers say they shouldn't be armed. Then, combating a crime wave. What some cities across the country are turning to rather than arrests.
We thought our car was safe, and it turns out it was not.
Plus, following the money. How much the federal government is gathering in tax dollars every year, where your money is being spent, and who's watching to see where it goes. Then, no place like home. How many Americans don't have a place to shelter each night? What the Biden administration wants to do about it. And later, devotion to duty.
We don't forget. We're never going to forget.
The new technology that helped an American hero find his final resting place. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for being here with us. On this weekend edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week and look ahead at what to expect. Starting with the four big stories we've been following all week. Capitol Hill compromise. Lawmakers in Washington racing the clock on the nation's debt. Cooling economy. How this week's new reports could impact the Fed's next rate hike and why buying a home could cost you more. The 2024 race for the White House, who's taking the lead in the growing GOP field, plus business backlash, the role of social media and boycotts against brands. Which factors determine how quickly companies can bounce back? Developing now, the debt deal in Washington, plus a strong jobs report causing an optimistic closing bell Friday. And the bipartisan compromise creating a cause for celebration for some companies this weekend. First, the agreement asks for an acceleration of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which boosted shares for the project's main leader, Equitrans Midstream's. Lending company SoFi also expected to cash in from the debt deal, which pushes for borrowers to start paying back federal student loans by the end of the summer. The agreement also decreasing IRS funding, which could benefit companies like H&R Block and TurboTax owner Intuit, because experts say it lowers the odds the IRS will build its own electronic tax filing system. Keeping an eye on your money, U.S. mortgage rates are the highest they've been since November. Freddie Mae released a new report which finds the 30-year fixed rate average is 6.79%. That's 1.5% higher than the same time last year. The numbers show the U.S. economy is strong, and that's a source of concern about high inflation. The Federal Reserve may skip hiking interest rates at its meeting this month. In a speech, the Federal Reserve Governor, Philip Jefferson, said skipping a rate hike would allow Fed policymakers to see more data before making decisions. The Fed has implemented 10 straight rate hikes over the past 14 months. The current benchmark interest rate, roughly 5.1%, the highest in 16 years. Right now, a growing number of Republicans are hitting the campaign trail, challenging the frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, in the race to win back the presidency. By the end of next week, there could be 10 or more Republican candidates in all, with more to come. The National Desk chief political correspondent Scott Thuman takes a closer look at what Republican voters say are the traits of an ideal candidate to take back the White House.
Make America great again. That's a very simple...
Back at the starting line, former President Trump stumping across Iowa and trying to stomp out his early competition.
Who can believe in an open border? But when I heard DeSantis go out and say, and talk about 8 years, we need 8 years. You don't need 8 years, you need 6 months.
Referring to Governor Ron DeSantis, who is crisscrossing New Hampshire for the first time as a candidate.
You can have a bold vision, enact a bold agenda, and attract people to your candidacy and not repel people.
And relying on his wife, a former TV host, to help burnish his image. But what do Republican voters want? A recent CBS News YouGov poll shows likely GOP voters prefer someone who challenges woke ideas, opposes any gun restrictions, says Trump won in 2020, and makes liberals angry. In many ways, Trump to a T.
We hope everybody understands, like these people, that you can't beat Trump.
Let's just go ahead and make this nomination right here and now.
Yet that hardly means they all want Trump. There are plenty of Republican voters who, like other candidates, say Trump's too controversial, don't like how he deals with opponents, and are concerned over his ongoing legal fights. In other words, 49% of that group say Trump makes them feel exhausted. And that's encouraging others to jump in.
I have devoted my life to this fight, and I'm just getting started.
Let's go! Let's go!
And in the next week, former Vice President Mike Pence and 2016 candidate Chris Christie are expected to announce bids. And current New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu also gearing up for a possible run. In Washington, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
New details on the Memorial Day weekend travel boom. Experts say air traffic surpassed pre-pandemic levels with 9.8 million people passing through TSA checkpoints. Friday alone set a post-pandemic record for single-day air travel with 2.74 million passengers screened. Experts warn the surge could be a sign of what's to come this summer, saying air travel could be a challenge as staffing levels dip. After years of struggling with a balanced budget, some Americans are asking if the government needs more accountability when it comes to spending. Earlier this week, I spoke with the fact-check team about where exactly your tax dollars are going. In fiscal year 2023, the federal government has collected $2.69 trillion in revenue from a variety of sources like individual income taxes, payroll taxes, and corporate taxes, according to the Treasury Department. I'm back with Courtney from the Fact Check team. Break down, Courtney, where Americans' tax dollars are actually going.
That's the million-dollar question, Dee Dee. Social Security benefits are the biggest expense for taxpayers, just ahead of Medicare. But your dollars also go towards other health care programs like Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program, national defense, veterans benefits, education, infrastructure, safety net programs, and salaries for federal employees.
And we know the U.S., we've talked about this, is approaching $32 trillion in debt. How do taxpayer dollars factor into that equation?
Dee Dee, right now the national debt is at $31.8 trillion. And if everyone in the U.S. covered an equal part of that debt, each taxpayer would have to pay almost $250,000.
Tell us more about how those tax dollars are monitored.
So there are thousands of government accountants and auditors, but it's still hard to know exactly where each dollar goes. The Government Accountability Office does issue reports on wasteful spending, including taxpayer dollars, every year, but they serve as more of a watchdog rather than an oversight authority. And lawmakers and nonprofits also watch for wasteful spending.
All right, something good information to know for all of us. Thank you for that breakdown. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to where their sources are, scan that QR code on your screen or visit thenationaldesk.com. Right now, smoke from wildfires in Canada is triggering air quality alerts in several cities in America's northeast. Fires have been burning in the Nova Scotia province for several weeks. Look here at the landscape. More than 150 homes, they have been destroyed there. Evacuation orders are still in place for at least 18,000 people.
We're staying with friends in our camper, actually in their yard over in Sackville right now. We've reached out to a campground who have been very, very helpful for evacuation.
With the weather changing, temperatures increasing, humidity is dropping a little bit, getting warmer, winds picking up. So the hotspots that we're seeing are coming back to life.
The National Weather Service says wind could bring the smell of smoke as far south as the Mid-Atlantic region. As Pride Month begins, several companies are responding to threats of boycotts and even violence for being inclusive. The National Desk, Atra El-Nashar reports.
Culture wars coming to a store near you. Kohl's, the latest company to face threats of a boycott from conservative activists and media voices. The catalyst? This onesie with a person holding the Progress Pride flag. Critics say the retailer is targeting kids, calling it inappropriate. As of airtime, Kohl's did not respond to our request for comment. Kohl's has been participating in Pride Month for years. So has Target for more than a decade, which the company pointed out when announcing it's pulling some of its Pride items after receiving threats.
And they've told all the employees to go.
Authorities investigating bomb threats at Target stores in Utah, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Target getting additional backlash from those who say they compromise their values.
We now, in the southern stores, have to walk all the way to the back. This is where Pride stuff is. This is not ally behavior.
It's hard to quantify the impact of this backlash. Retail stocks have already been struggling over the past year as consumers shift spending away from goods and towards services. Critics point to a recent drop in Target stock, but around the same time, the company released a disappointing earnings report coming off an already slow year. Levi's and North Face have also faced conservative criticism for their pride campaigns or inclusive marketing. Bud Light garnering the most attention for recalibrating its marketing after a recent boycott and drop in sales.
I don't believe that companies are going to completely go away from that. They might have to be a little more careful about how it's represented in this new political environment that we're seeing.
In recent years, boycotts have had tangible short-term effects, but companies have weathered the storm.
Pick a company and we can find inclusive messaging that they've given in the past. There's only, so many things that you can get enraged about until there's no restaurants left to eat at, no food left to eat, or, places to go.
The jury's still out on the impact of the outrage. In Washington, I'm Atrell Nishar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
And ahead here on the National Desk, driving change, what the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Board wants required in all new vehicles. Plus, housed in hotels, New York's new strategy to provide shelter for incoming migrants. Developing now, the Department of Transportation is proposing a new rule mandating automatic braking on all new passenger vehicles. The technology stops or slows down a moving car when a hazard is detected. The feature already exists in many models, but the administration now says the technology is mature enough to become mandatory.
We're seeing a real epidemic of roadway fatalities on U.S. roads, over 40,000 deaths a year. And as I always say, these aren't just statistics. This is our family, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, our fellow Americans.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates the law would save 360 lives per year. Also developing now, coast-to-coast car thefts of Hyundais and Kias. The National Desk's Angelo Brown looks at the link between the missing vehicles and a long-lasting social media challenge.
This viral challenge starting months ago is still red hot, showing people how to steal a Kia or Hyundai on video. Some platforms have taken down the videos, but the thefts keep coming, and our 4,000 local journalists across the country are talking to victims. What more could the Serbaugh family do? Installing free anti-theft equipment in their Kia didn't stop thieves over the Memorial Day holiday in Ohio.
We thought our car was safe, and it turns out it was not.
Different state, same story. Brianna Walker's Kia stolen in Oregon, a car she uses for Uber Eats.
$400 car seat that I'm out of. I had a tablet in there. I had personal stuff, and I just feel violated now.
Certain models of Kia and Hyundai are being targeted. Police say a social media challenge may be to blame that depicts how to steal these cars. Police departments in a dozen cities have said it factors into an increase in juveniles arrested or charged with car thefts.
Very often people who are not even old enough to have a driver's license who are watching these videos, they're stealing these vehicles, and then they're going on what we called back in my day a joyride.
A joyride with consequences, smashed up cars, ruined lives. New York AG Tish James sending out this alert, revealing at least 4 deaths and numerous injuries have resulted from car accidents following the theft of these vehicles in New York State alone. Not to mention long wait times for repairs, an even higher insurance rate than before the challenge went viral, according to AAA.
Insurance companies caught wind, and therefore there's some added risk and higher rates for those cars.
This year, Hyundai and Kia unveiled software updates designed to stop these thefts, but AGs in 17 states have called on federal regulators to issue a mandatory recall, arguing the software fixes are not enough. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Turning now to the border crisis, 2 more states are now sending National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. West Virginia and Virginia answering the call from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. To help with the migrant crisis, both governors highlighted the need to not only secure the border, but to limit the illegal flow of fentanyl.
All these brave men and women that will be going and everything will be training now, and will be there in the month of August, and it could be longer than that, but the initial period is for 30 days. And so far, 8 states have committed to sending troops or law enforcement to help out at the Texas-Mexico border. This week, the National Desk, Cale Thompson, went one-on-one with former Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, to get his take on the struggle to house migrants in New York City.
Let's start in New York City, where about 100 hotels and other facilities have been turned into temporary housing for around 50,000 migrants. We're now starting to hear from some hotel workers who say that they are finding some rooms trashed and evidence of drugs. Now, critics might say there's probably not a hotel in New York that hasn't seen that at some point, but I am curious your response to this and what's the plan for both the hotels and the migrants?
Well, the critics would be wrong because they haven't seen what we're seeing now. The images come out. But yet this is just another example of the cascading negative impacts of the Biden administration's open border policies. Just follow the logic here. So what we do is a migrant that comes to our borders, in the first action that's connected to our country is to illegally enter our nation in violation of our sovereignty, in violation of the rule of law. And what do we tell them? It's okay. The end justifies the means. There's no consequences to that. Then we go a step further. We provide them, we reward them. We provide them free housing, free healthcare, free education. And sanctuary cities like New York go even a step further. And when they remain in the country illegally and work illegally, they prevent federal law enforcement from doing their job to deport them lawfully. And then we're shocked when they have a sense of entitlement or they have no respect for our community or basic laws. No, this is exactly what happens when a crisis like this has been created by this administration and sanctuary cities like New York enable it. This is no shock.
What is the impact to taxpayers? Do we know?
Yeah, we do. So in New York City, this is a good question. In New York City, it's about $5 million a day to taxpayers. It's not New York City, it's taxpayers. And then we expand it across the nation. It's about $180 billion annually that taxpayers pay for illegal aliens. That's $180 billion with a B. And that's not just New York. It's other, towns and cities and states through New York. Throughout the country, as well as counties and border states that receive the brunt of the impact.
Well, speaking of some of these impacts, we know the U.S. has spent $13 billion sponsoring unaccompanied minor children at the border since 2012. We saw that video here just last week of, I believe it was a 4-year-old being dropped over a border barrier in San Diego. What happens to these children once they're in the U.S.?
Yeah, good question. And that video we saw, this is just one of countless. The past 27 months, we've been out there talking about it. There have been countless children that have been abandoned by the cartels and smugglers because they couldn't keep up, or they're abandoned on the bank of the Rio Grande, literally to die if they hadn't been for Border Patrol agents rescuing them. We know that young minors are sexually assaulted and raped on their journey up here. We know that they're thrust into life of trafficking. So this isn't new. This is yet another example. Here's what happens is that Border Patrol will apprehend an unaccompanied minor. Remember, that's 17 years of age or younger. And then they are mandated to process as fast as humanly possible and give them to HHS, Health and Human Services, who then have the mandate to continue that processing as fast as possible to get them out of their care and into the hands of a sponsor anywhere in the United States. Their design is not for their care and well-being. It's a processing mill to get them out of their custody as fast as humanly possible. Our country right now is literally completing the last leg of the smuggling operations for the cartels.
And you can view the full interview, plus more top stories online all the time at thenationaldesk.com. Ahead here on the National Desk, America's News Now, keeping veterans safe. The new initiative in one state aimed at helping prevent veteran suicides, plus fighting the fentanyl crisis, where lawmakers are pushing for more resources to test for the drug. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, starting in South Carolina, where a store owner is facing murder charges after officials say he shot a 14-year-old boy.
This is 58-year-old Rick Chow, owner of the Shell gas station on Park Lane Road, whom Richland County deputies say gunned down a 14-year-old boy on Sunday night after he thought the boy was shoplifting in his store.
Owners of the convenience store suspected him of shoplifting. He did not shoplift anything.
The 14-year-old boy was identified as Cyrus Carmack Belton. After deputies say a verbal confrontation began between Belton and Chow in the store, the boy ran from the scene, and Chow chased after him towards the Spring Tree Apartments before shooting Belton in the back.
This was not an accidental shooting by any means. This was a very intentional shooting.
Members of the community were shocked and upset with what happened.
I did not think that something like this would happen here in our community. This is senseless. The summer's not even here yet, and you got a human life gone for a bottle of water.
Deputies also say that a gun was found near Carmack Belton's body, but there was no indication that it was his or that it was used in any threatening way. Chow is being held at the Alvin Escalon Detention Center, and the Richland County Sheriff's Department is still investigating.
Now over to Utah, where the state's Department of Veteran and Military Affairs will soon offer free gun safes in addition to the complimentary gun locks it already distributes. It's part of an effort to prevent suicides. Safes for long rifles and handguns are available to all Utah veterans and their family members.
To me, it's anyone that feels like they're at risk or anyone that thinks someone's at risk. Even if it's one life that we can save, we're doing our job.
The department says the free gun safes will be available as soon as July. In Maryland, a Bethesda-based organization is leading efforts to create widespread access to fentanyl testing strips. Robert Houghton, the director of Team Vaccinate, says in January he started cold calling and emailing lawmakers about legalizing test strips for fentanyl. Just last week, the Strip Act was introduced, which, if passed, would legalize the fentanyl testing strips nationwide.
Every parent I've spoken with is so happy to hear that there's another tool out there that their children will have when they're not around.
Houghton says he's hoping the strips will be available over the counter and says he's talking to CBS about carrying them. Up next year on the National Desk, America's News Now. Imagine your main source of comfort and support suddenly vanished. The therapy dog now back with his owner, how one of his own helped bring him home. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now. The search for the next Gerber baby is now underway. The winning baby will win a cash prize of $25,000, their family. Then watch as this car in Georgia flies through the air after launching off the ramp of a tow truck. The deputy whose body camera captured this video then acting quickly to help the driver who was seriously hurt. In Washington state, a 12-year-old is expected to make a full recovery after falling into a well at recess. Look right here. When firefighters arrived on the scene, they found the boy holding onto a plastic pipe roughly 20 feet down. He said he was standing on the concrete lid of the well when it partially collapsed. Those stories and much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. Right now, a former Rhode Island high school therapy dog is back with his owner after spending days lost in the woods. 9-year-old Kobe went missing last week. After days of searching, his owner enlisted the help of Pack Leader Pet Trackers, a company that uses scent dogs to track down missing pets. The dogs narrowed down the search to one area, and when trail cameras were put up to help the search, Kobe was found.
We ran right over, and Kobe was just ecstatic, and we were all just so overcome with emotion, happy, sad, just relieved.
Kobe is doing well after being found and even got to meet one of the dogs that helped trace his scent. Love that. Dogs helping dogs. Ahead here in our next half hour, a grave new warning from industry leaders on the power of AI. Their greatest fear if the tech goes unchecked. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Developing right now a grave warning from AI industry leaders and researchers. A statement released this week revealing their top concern if the technology goes unchecked. The short 22-word statement here reading, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. While the societal scale risks the statement references are far off, according to some experts, the industry is calling for regulation now before any major mishaps happen. Key industry figures like OpenAI CEO and the CEO of Google DeepMind signed on to the warning. Just 2 months ago, some of the same people asked for a 6-month pause on the technology's development. Meantime, voters are also weighing in on rapidly evolving AI ahead of the next presidential election. A Fox News survey reveals the most common emotional responses to AI were less than favorable, with 16% saying they felt afraid or that AI was dangerous, 11% saying they felt negative or that it was a bad idea, and 8% saying they don't trust AI. There were fewer positive responses. Just 7% said they felt AI was innovative. Navigating major financial decisions is especially tricky with high inflation and a potential recession, making the future hard to predict. But Americans' basic understanding of personal finance and the broader economy has also been on the decline. Spotlight on America's Atra El-Nashar reports.
Earlier this year, Americans reached a milestone, and not one anyone wanted to see. For the first time, household debt reached $17 trillion. Inflation, rising mortgage rates, crushing student debt. For too many adults, getting ahead in life or just keeping up seems impossible.
All right, question 4.
But in this high school classroom, about an hour and a half outside the nation's capital, these kids are determined to be ready.
What do we call the portion of a car value that we do not finance when buying a car?
Down payment.
Mount Hebron High School's economics students are already young masters of personal finance, macroeconomics, and everything in between. And they've got national championship trophies to prove it.
They need to understand economic and economic reasoning for their future.
But outside these classroom walls, throughout the country, there's a financial literacy problem, and it comes at a price. A survey conducted by the National Financial Educators Council last year found, on average, a lack of financial literacy cost adults more than $1,800 in 2022. Perhaps it's not understanding interest rates, the housing market, budgeting, or saving for retirement.
Much like my students walking in here when they're 9th graders, we have adults walking on the street who have exactly the same amount of financial and economic education as those 14-year-old kids. And that's concerning. Having to pick that up on the run is very difficult. Having to pick that up on the run...
Costly.
Very costly.
According to the FINRA Foundation, measured financial literacy scores have been steadily declining for more than a decade. The price of not knowing is getting higher for Gen Zs, who face a steeper hill than their parents did to afford healthcare, education, or owning a home.
I'd like to own a home. I'd like to live debt-free. I think those are good things.
I would love to be part of the middle class or greater, and I would love to own my own business.
Diego and Natalie are two of the lucky ones. Their school happens to have an economics course, though their home state of Maryland does not require it. Neither do 24 other states in the District of Columbia, according to the Council for Economic Education.
Why does half this country not have the opportunity to take this?
The council's chief program officer, Christopher Caltabiano, advocates to state and local policymakers to add this to curriculums.
Understanding how you spend, understanding what investing looks like, understanding how credit works in this country, is understanding how those choices work within your life, and making the decisions that make the most sense for you.
Yeah, and not learning it all as you go as an adult.
And not learning it all by making mistakes.
He says almost everyone he encounters agrees it should be taught, but not all agree there's time in the day to teach it. Another obstacle, training teachers.
What happens to the market interest rate and private investment?
Econ teaches costs and the trade-offs that you face between options. You don't know how much you're missing until you learn it.
In fact, the case for teaching financial literacy may be a lesson in economics itself. Invest and know the risk when you don't. In Ellicott City, Maryland, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting for Spotlight on America.
Interesting story, Acha, thank you. New details on a troubling spike in a respiratory virus you may have never heard of. Cases of human metapneumovirus, or HMPV, peaked in mid-March with nearly 11% of patients testing positive, which is 36% higher than the average peak of 7% before the pandemic. Symptoms are similar to the flu and COVID, including coughing, runny nose, sore throat, and fever. However, unlike COVID and the flu, there's no vaccine for HMPV or antiviral drugs to treat it. Ukraine may soon launch its long-anticipated counteroffensive against Russia. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said he has decided on the dates of the counteroffensive, although he did not disclose the exact dates or any specific plans. Russia invaded Ukraine more than 15 months ago. Homeless encampments have become a common sight in some major U.S. cities, including San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. This week, the fact-check team investigated how cities are working to provide temporary housing to incoming migrants.
Government data from Housing and Urban Development shows nearly 583,000 people experienced homelessness last year. It's a slight increase from the year before. I'm back with the fact-check team now. Janae, how does this migrant influx impact the homelessness crisis?
Well, Eugene, right here in Washington, D.C., homeless numbers are also increasing. Mayor Muriel Bowser says it's partly because of the thousands of migrants coming to the city seeking asylum. Now, their latest numbers show an 11.6% increase in homelessness compared to last year. Now, the numbers are lower than before the pandemic, but many of the homeless living in tents, forcing law enforcement to clear homeless encampments around the city. Now, according to the Washington Post, the city's new Office of Migrant Services has spent more than $15.1 million on hotel lodging, food, and other services. The expenses are projected to climb to $52.5 million by October.
And what's been the impact specifically on homeless shelters, Courtney?
Eugene, homeless shelters in places like New York and Texas are overwhelmed and running out of resources. Last month, hundreds of migrants set up camp in front of homeless shelters in El Paso, and those shelters ran out of room and kitchen supplies. In response to the influx, the city extended its disaster declaration.
Many of these cities calling on the federal government to step in and help. Are they getting this help that they're asking for?
So the Homeland Security Secretary pointed out earlier this month that the $800 million in the Emergency Food and Shelter Program goes to cities experiencing a large influx of migrants. The government also says they're working to mobilize nonprofit and faith-based organizations to provide temporary shelter, food, and humanitarian assistance for asylum seekers. But as we've seen, some would say this isn't enough. For example, El Paso has $26.5 million in funding they can use on processed migrants, but the mayor says all of the money in the world won't take care of the immigration problem.
For more on this fact-check team topic, including links to the fact-check team sources, do you want to scan the QR code you see there on your screen or visit us online at thenationaldesk.com.
Impeached Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton will now go without pay on top of his suspension. Paxton was impeached from office last week as a result of a 2-month investigation looking into alleged bribery and abuse of public trust. If Paxton is found guilty, he'd be permanently removed from office following the Senate trial. This week, prosecutors promising a fair trial.
The people of the state of Texas are entitled to know whether their top cop is a crook. We intend to present these 20 articles of impeachment in a fair way.
And his impeachment trial will start no later than August 28th. A word of warning if the unofficial start of summer has motivated you to start a seasonal shape-up plan. The National Desk medical reporter Liz Bonus explains why you might want to protect your feet.
Hey there, everybody. If you're considering a summer shape-up program of power walking or running, nothing can sideline you faster than foot problems.
I run 5Ks with my children. I run marathons by myself, and my passion is the ultramarathon distance, anywhere from 50K to 50-miler.
Patrick Messerschmidt knows what one of those foot problems feels like as a competitive runner.
Absolutely. Achilles tendonitis.
He's learned now that stretches like these can help reduce that kind of tendonitis and a few other common foot problems that show up in foot specialist Dr. Gordon Yunn's office this time of year.
Three most common things I'll probably see at this time of year are plantar fasciitis, something called capsulitis, which is more forefoot pain, and then Achilles tendonitis.
All of those, he says, are overuse injuries that come on when we start walking or running and do too much too soon.
People just get out there and overdo it, more or less.
So to fix these problems?
The plain awful truth of that is it's time and rest, which is probably the most impractical treatment plan.
So rather than needing to treat it, to prevent it,
I think it's keeping your pace low and having a good balance between your training and your rest.
One other note, he says, running footwear generally loses shock absorption in about 300 to 500 miles. Replacing that footwear can reduce impact on your muscles and your joints. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
Good to know. Liz, thank you. Still to come here, our team of correspondents breaking down this week in Washington, from the slowing economy and what it could mean for you to a spike in violent crime involving kids.
And welcome back. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day to report on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. The Bureau's correspondents are here with their insights on the stories they've been covering. Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman, the Republican presidential field growing fast.
Yeah, Steve, and quickly. Now, keep in mind, in the last week, you'll have seen plenty of visits by Governor Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump in places like Iowa and New Hampshire. But when you look at a poll by CBS YouGov, it shows that what GOP voters prefer is someone who is willing to challenge woke ideology, who's willing to fight any criticism of gun ownership, and someone who enjoys making liberals mad. You would think a lot of that is right there for Donald Trump's taking. However, among those polled in that same survey who don't want Trump to win, they say it's because they feel exhausted by him. And that opens up doors for other candidates, and why in the next week you will see perhaps Chris Christie, former Vice President Mike Pence, and others jump in who think there is a window for them.
And the top issue on voters' minds, national correspondent Dr. El Nashar, the economy, inflation continuing to have an impact. Tell us how shoppers are changing their habits and what that may mean.
Well, look, we already knew that there was this big shift away from goods and towards services since coming out of lockdown, since vaccines came on the scene. But Macy's, Target, Home Depot, Dollar General, pick a retailer this week and their stock is down. Why? Their earnings reports most likely in the last week or two showed that sales have slowed down far, far greater than expectations. And a lot of companies are lowering their outlook. Costco, their CFO, is noting that consumers are switching more to generic brands like Kirkland products. They're buying cheaper meats like pork and chicken instead of beef. So why does this matter for the broader economy, not just stockholders? Well, when you look at GDP, consumer spending is a huge part of that. So that's something we'll be watching when it comes to recession concerns, but also folks just changing their everyday habits and maybe trying to build a cushion in case that slowdown.
And from economic concerns and economic slowdowns to potentially an electrical grid slowdown as we enter the summer, warnings about the reliability of the nation's electric grid. National correspondent Christine Frizzell, what did experts tell Congress this past week about what to expect?
Yeah, we heard some dire warnings, Steve, and they come just as, of course, it's heating up across the country. Summer temperatures making it so more people are using air conditioning, relying on more power, frankly. Now, the warning here is that the electric grid could be very strained. And NERC put out a map showing 2/3 of the country is at elevated risk for running out of electricity or at some point. They're talking about power outages. They're talking about things that are pretty scary here. But the reality is there's several factors. One, simply more people are relying on the electric grid. We have more people buying electric cars, things like that. But there is also fossil fuels are sort of scaling down. The reliance on things like coal and natural gas, that is slowing down. However, a lot of experts I also spoke to said things are improving. We just passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act that is going to include $3 billion to build new transmission lines. That is going to speed up the transmission of electricity. So things will improve. It's just going to take some time.
And watching the grid as summer creeps up on us, we're also, as school is letting out for the summer soon, national correspondent Kayla Gaskins, growing concerns about some kids causing big problems.
That's right, Steve. So we saw some pretty violent headlines coming out of the Memorial Day weekend holiday. A mass shooting in Florida, Marines beat up in California, more shootings up in Massachusetts. And something that all of these instances have in common is how they began, with tensions between groups of young people. In Florida, for example, reports are coming out that the mass shooting started with two groups of young people, of juveniles, began clashing. Out in California, there was a mob of about 40 teenagers that beat up the 3 Marines out there. And then the week before that in California, in Chicago, an entire festival was canceled because mob violence broke out and teens, juveniles just started beating each other up in the middle of the fairgrounds. Now, we talked to some law enforcement experts, and they say that mob youth violence is on the rise since 2020. For example, homicides committed by groups of more than one or two groups of more than 2 people, has risen 66%. And they say there's not a precise cause exactly why this is happening. However, it does have to play into police shortages as well as what exactly happened during COVID. These kids were left without structure, some of them for years on end. So, Steve, as school lets out and as the summer continues, this is something law enforcement is keeping a close eye on.
Kayla, Christine, Atra, Scott, thank you all for your great reporting and your hard work. Back to you.
Thank you. According to an Education Week analysis, there have been at least 24 school shootings this year that resulted in injuries or deaths. Their records show there were 51 in 2022. K through 12 teachers are divided over whether they think being armed would make schools safer. What's their top concern? Well, according to a new survey by the RAND Corporation, it's bullying. I spoke to security experts about the data.
Get inside! Parents are on edge, students are on edge, educators are on edge.
New data reveals how some K through 12 teachers view safety in America's schools. 54% believe teachers carrying firearms would make schools less safe. 20% think carrying a gun to class would make schools safer. And the remainder said it would make schools neither more nor less safe, according to a new survey by the RAND Corporation.
In some sense, yeah, firearms at least can make individuals feel more safe. And then I'm also thinking, like, how liable am I if I am trying to take down a target and then accidentally kill one of my kids?
With former and current K through 12 teachers divided on what needs to happen next, researchers also say the survey data indicates teachers' most common top safety concern was bullying, something in line with what security experts say they're seeing in school assessments.
One school shooting is one too many, but those are low probability, high impact occurrences. There are many other issues: bullying, fighting, aggressive behavior, sexual assaults, different types of other offenses that are much more likely to occur.
Buying these expensive weapon detection systems without a proper assessment is like a doctor giving you chemotherapy because you think you might have cancer without performing any tests.
But oftentimes the best security is less visible or invisible by the relationships, the connectedness, the support services for students, and the training of your staff to see something, say something.
And as tragedies arise, districts adapt in different ways to the worst possible scenario. The Washington Post tracker said there were more school shootings in 2022 than in any year since at least 1999. Ahead here on the National Desk, a proper goodbye. Missing for more than 7 decades, a Medal of Honor recipient is finally brought home. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. Our team of nearly 4,000 local journalists bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. We begin in Georgia, where a recently identified Korean War soldier was laid to rest 7 decades after his death.
73 years after Private First Class Luther Story was last seen alive, his remains have been buried with his name. While fighting during an attack from the enemy in the Korean War, he was wounded. In an effort to not hinder his comrades, Story stayed behind, covering his company's withdrawal. But his own story continues today, as relatives and descendants were joined by guests remembering his devotion to duty. His great-nephew, Matthew Swainer, recalls the tales of Story's bravery. And thanks to DNA technology, Story's remains have been identified after his niece, Judy Wade, submitted her own DNA samples.
Just last month, she called me and said, and just was overjoyed that they had found him.
After all of these years, Luther's Story was finally given a proper burial. Taps played on trumpet, an American flag placed over his casket, supporters silent in respect, as a nod from above was seen as 2 Black Hawk helicopters flew over.
This building at the corner of Southeast Oak Street and Southeast 13th Avenue was the target of graffiti and broken windows before, to the point where landlord Brad McComber is losing hope that it will stop.
They don't call the police anymore. There's nothing they're going to do about it. There's a number that you can call to have the city come out and remove homeless tents. And you can call as many times as you want and no one ever comes out.
But Portland police quickly responded after receiving a 911 call and arrested 29-year-old Evan Hunt for criminal mischief. Hunt is listed as homeless in the police report, and this isn't his first encounter with police.
We don't have a homeless problem in Portland. We have a mental health problem and a drug problem.
The thing is, I don't think most Washington State ferry riders realize how broken the system is.
The San Juan Islands and Anacortes routes certainly broke down this holiday weekend with a lack of crew canceling sailings, then a boat breaking down. The perfect storm stranded people, some of them reporting on Twitter for 5 to 10 hours. Using the state's app is one way to avoid long, frustrating lines. Signing up for alerts is another. When the Kittitas broke down, for instance, an alert went out suggesting drivers consider driving all the way around using Highway 20.
What do you think of the ferry system as a whole, then? As a whole, I think they do a pretty good job, like, during COVID.
The system out here is really broken. And so what it is for us during the week, it's inter-island service. So we have a 1959 boat that is broken. We have crews that are burnt out.
Up next here, a miraculous rescue on Earth's highest mountain. The hiker who braved unthinkable conditions coming up next. Looking ahead to stories making headlines this week, former Vice President Mike Pence is expected to announce his 2024 presidential campaign in Des Moines, Iowa on Wednesday. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie also expected to throw his hat in the ring on Tuesday in New Hampshire. Both men are former Trump allies who will now face the Republican frontrunner in the GOP primary. On Monday, journalists from the nation's largest newspaper chain are expected to walk off the job. The strike aims to protest Gannett's leadership and cost-cutting measures. Before we go, check out this incredible video of a man carrying a climber on his back who went missing trying to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Now, the Sherpa was guiding another client when he saw the man clinging to a rope, shivering from the extreme cold. He wrapped the missing climber in a sleeping mat and took turns with another tour guide carrying the climber to a camp on the mountain. The climber was then airlifted via helicopter to base camp. At least 12 climbers have died this season, the highest number in 8 years. Just incredible video there. That's going to do it for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. Don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Just check your local listings. You can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next week.